Coogs House. Pinch yourself, slap yourself awake, pour water on your face, whatever you need to. That game was not a dream.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougars, the podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to stop by, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Cougars. And we'll join the conversation, but I would say tell us in the comments down below about a great vacation you've been on. It's bye week for these Cougars, and we're hoping they get a little bit of time away themselves. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We got more on that fun later. We got a lot to talk about today about a game that just happened on the weekend. Yes, we will address the elephant-sized tweet in the room at the end of the episode. Dun, dun, dun. That's your stay tuned kind of moment, I guess. I don't know. The second segment, the middle segment, we'll recap the game by looking at goats and goats. We've been doing that a couple weeks in a row. I kind of like how that's been rolling. Lots more capital G goats. We'll get into that in the second segment. First and foremost, I want to talk about the thing that I think was interesting to me to see a lot here. And I went to one group of people and asked the question kind of boldly. I texted some people, DM with people, responded with Twitter on people, and so on about Houston's offense, because I think a lot of people are admittedly, I'd just say, not happy with it, even though Houston's finding ways to win games. The dismissiveness of the offense has been interesting because there are moments in the last, regime, I'll say, where Houston's offense looked good, and I would argue the team still looked bad. And so now Houston's in a far more difficult schedule. One of the 5 most difficult schedules in the country coming into the season based on previous season's win percentage. I mean, a really challenging schedule. Houston's sitting here at 4-5 overall, 3-3 in the Big 12 Conference, and legitimately has a chance to play for a bowl game in the next couple of weeks. But the offense is not pretty enough. Now, admittedly, one thing I've become irritated by is third down runs. So I want to get those at the end of this segment. But a lot of people, I think, have a problem with the offense because it is so run dominant. I mean, Houston ran the ball 39 times against Kansas State. 39 times, makes me want to laugh. 39 times against Kansas State. For reference, Kansas State is one of the leading rushing teams in the Big 12. Had the lead for large periods of this game, and they ran the ball 33 times in this ball game. Now, I've got Houston out at 3.2 yards per rush, which is not quite a run, not quite a first down every 3 runs. Technically, for that, you need 3.4 or 3.33334 or something, right? Just over a third. And so I get why people are like, well, that's not quite good enough, 3.2 yards. But the truth is, and this is admittedly I coached 9 years of high school varsity football, and I was run game coordinator, and I enjoy running the football and the ways that works with line play and stuff like that. And I've been a varsity basketball coach for a lot longer, and so I guess that's maybe that's where I get my high speed flowing offensive kind of things out of. But when I look at what Houston's doing running the football, it's a long game. It's an ugly game, but it's a long game, and that's how you get these dramatic runs in the fourth quarter of football games. You're wearing people down. Yes, they only had 123 yards on the ground in an ugly slop of a game. Kansas State knew where they were running. Houston knew what they were running. And truthfully, the weather dictated that both teams run the ball a lot. I think people ask for like creativity on runs and stuff like that, or maybe that's the problem, is that they want more orbit motions and reverses and stuff like that. But truthfully, that's not, frankly, that kind of window dressing, I don't think is going to be in Houston's bag until they get some real threatening kind of stuff out on the outside with that to make it worthwhile. Otherwise, you're just moving people around for the sake of moving them. It doesn't really have any effect in the same kind of way without it there. Now, the big complaint I've had, And I think the thing that other people have brought up is I think we've seen young Chris with a decent enough ball to throw the ball more than 11 times in the game, more than 12 times. I guess he threw the ball 11 times. Manjack had the other completion down the field. And I think he does not have to throw the screen passes where you get the ball out for a 2-yard gain because you're shooting your lineman out there or whatever on the same kind of thing. Those are kind of my more complaints of the offense, is that I think he has the arm strength and down the field accuracy to kind of be a little more trusted on those kinds of things. But on the whole, he didn't have an incompletion in the football game. He had a great touchdown look to Malik Carr on the pop pass. I mean, he really, played pretty well throwing the football, all things considering you only gave him 11 chances to throw. My big complaint, and I think the one that my biggest complaint, I should say, and the one I think people take credence with, are the third and long runs. So I qualify third and long as 3rd and 4 or more. Some people might go less than that, but 3rd and 4 or more means that you didn't get 3 or more yards on the first two, or you only got 3 or less yards, I should say, on the first 2 downs each, right? And so on 3rd and long, they ran out of the situation, I should say, 11 times in the football game. I mean, they ran into a 3rd and long, 3rd and 4 or more 11 times against Kansas State. They had 6 of those 11 plays were runs called on 3rd and 4 or more. They converted just once. To be fair, there was one time in the second watch, I think that Zion Chris it was 3rd and 9, and they gave him 8 on the run. I think he got a bad spot there, but regardless, they converted just one of the 6 times they called a run play on 3rd and 4 or more. For what it's worth, the other 5 plays were obviously also passes, because that's the other option. And they only converted one of those via pass. So just bad at 3rd and 4 or more at most things they're trying to do. This offense is not designed to get more than 4 yards in a play very often, right? And so I think that's the real problem here, maybe. I'm trying to find some sort of a thread or reasoning or rationale, and I really run out of ways to figure this out. I don't know why, I guess I should say. Now, one of the 3rd and 4 or longer situations, they had a 3rd and 7 in their final possession of the game. Now, that was an under 2-minute situation. You're trying to waste clock. They really ran the ball, I think, that time to make sure they didn't turn it over, right? And so I think they got 5 of the 7 on that. They almost got it, frankly. But I guess if you want to take that one out, it'd still be 5 out of 10 throughout the main course of the game. And I think that's frustrating because this team is not the explosive run team that's going to get 16, 17, 18-yard runs very often. It's going to be far more of the cloud of dust kind of team. And so if it's 3rd and 5, 5 is not a cloud of dust. And so that's when I think we need to be going to more of these pop passes to Malik Carr, the pick route to Devin Williams, getting Boogie over the top, right? Like those kinds of things. And I like the pick route they ran for Boogie against Utah, where it was trips left and they had like a little hitch, a fade to take away the safety, and then the wheel route from Boogie going from inside out got picked off by the hitch. Great catch, but easy throw. And I think those kinds of things are there. They're in an under center play action play in the Kansas State game, in which Zion Chris faked the handoff and wheeled back and flipped to Joseph Manjack. I think he probably scored there. The call stood that he did not score. So I guess had it been that ruled on the field that he did, they would have let it go. But either way, really just, he's got the ability to do those kind of things. And so my frustration is not in run, pass. And I think people criticizing this team for doing run, pass for their first 3 downs of every possession don't understand how football worked before the air raid. Maybe, I don't know. It feels very misunderstood. Be like, well, we this isn't creative. Like, football is not meant to be pretty. Football is meant to be won. And I think that ultimately, it's hard to argue with the results on this one. They've won 3 of the last 4 games, playing in the Big 12 and all of those. You had the most roster turnover coming into the year of anyone besides Colorado in the nation. And for what it's worth, It probably took you could argue, took a few games for those guys to gel. You also had to figure out your quarterback situation. Your current starting quarterback got dinged up when he rotated in your first game of the season. And so he didn't get to play for a couple games. You were with Donnie, and Donnie didn't work out. He's not, I don't think, ever going to be himself again as far as when the football goes. And so then you switch back to Zion, and once he's healthy, and all that kind of stuff happened too. But this offense, I think, finds these stalls, these moments where things do not go well. And I think that's by and large, that's my issue with the play calling is I understand run, run. It's run, run, run that I don't really understand. It's run, get stuffed because see it coming. Sure, whatever. Run on third down. That's where I'm running into it. And it's a thing that happened just 6 times when it was 3rd and 4 or more in the last game. And they did convert one of them, I guess. That's where my criticism is as a football coach and as a guy that watches this stuff a lot. And I think people being frustrated with the first 2 downs being run, maybe don't understand what's trying to be done here. Willie Fritz has won football games with low talent a lot of his career. Kevin Barbay has run the football throughout wherever he's been. App State, they were very successful with it, a few years back. On the whole, I don't know that I criticize those kinds of things. I just want more explanations. If given the chance to ask questions, I would ask for more explanations about why the runs on 3rd and long. And that happens far less, I think, than people are acting like. I think it's also not as big a problem as people are acting like. But also, I still feel strongly that it is a problem. And so I feel both sides of that criticism. That is the offensive play calling great. There are problems with it for sure. Is it working? I mean, they're winning. So I go back and forth there because it does spend clock. It does waste time. It does get your defense more of a blow because the clock is spent more and more and more. And it does wear out the other team's defense and so on. So anyway, I've gone too long on that one. I want to get to goats in a second. We told you that today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And if you're ready to get in on the NFL action, you got to do it today with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 back in bonus bets if that $5 bet hits. FanDuel Sportsbook gives you everything you need to place live bets in on the NFL all in one place. If you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page that you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment worth FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Parker Ainsworth locked on Cougs here, breaking down the weekend's games. And the second segment, as it has always been for the last few weeks, is that possible, is the GOATs versus GOATs, meaning GOATs, capital GOAT, greatest of all time acronym, versus the GOATs, the scapegoats, the GOAT of the game. And spoiler alert, they're all capital G GOATs. I'm not being negative about this one at all. It's Houston's highest ranked victory, meaning like highest ranked opponent they've beaten in the AP poll since 2017, I think was what I saw when they played South Florida. It was the first ranked win, meaning the first win over a ranked opponent since 2021 when they beat SMU. I think they ranked 21st or 23rd or something. Across the board, too big a victory to get down on any one or two guys. That does not mean there's nothing to correct. There was a couple guys that could maybe pick up the run blocking game on the perimeter. There were a couple plays I'd call this, couple plays I'd call that. But on the whole, this game does not need to have any scapegoats. It was all capital G goats. I want to give a shout out to Joseph Manjack in this one. Joseph Manjack, you have to imagine, is having, I don't want to say a frustrating year because I'm sure they're having fun winning games. And frankly, from what I know about the kid, that's always going to be the most important thing to him. But I do think he's got to be wondering about, like, is there a way he could be utilized more, right? He's a guy that as a receivers, are kind of coached in some ways to think they're always open because that's the kind of confidence you have to go catch the football sometimes and so on and so forth. Manjack has kept such a level head across a season that, again, would have to be frustrating to go from how much he got the ball last year to what this year's offense has become. But instead, he's finding a way to get involved in blocking for things. He's running his butt off on every route, taking safeties off the top and so on. Clearly, when he runs around and gets open, he gets the ball when it's designed to go that way, like we saw in the near touchdown pass in this one. And he even does things that help out on the special teams, and he throws the football when asked, like that we saw on the reverse pass. He also had the great presence of mind to throw that ball to Zion Chris, not in the end zone. He went ahead and threw it a few yards short to make sure he could catch it open because there were defenders in the end zone waiting. Really just continues to be an impressively great football player and continues to put the team first in a way that's visible, which is not always possible, but continues to put a team first in a way that's visible. The second series of GOATs, this is a group here, but I want to start talking about the starting back half of the defense. The DBs, Jeremiah Wilson, Hershey McLaurin, AJ Halsey, Kentrell Webb, and Latrell McCutcheon all get it in this one. Now, I get that one of the picks was Michael Batten, admittedly a linebacker in this defense. But Houston's DBs held Avery Johnson, who I want to continue to stress will be the kind of guy that you see in future Heisman type of conversations. They held him, who's been in his mid 60 percentage completions, down to 23 of 39, which is just below 59%. They held him to, again, just one touchdown pass, 2 picks. They also, for what it's worth, held him in check in the run game. And there were a couple different times that Houston ended up with sacks in this game that I'm here to tell you were also coverage sacks as well. I guess technically one of them went down as a tackle for loss because Avery started running statistically, but that's all for naught. The DBs played tremendous in this game. And he shout out Hershey McLaurin, got a locked on player of the week this week. So we'll talk about that with Roy later this week. But Roy, Return on You as an NIL group. They'll be putting $100 in his account at the Locked On Coogs player of the week this week. Just did so many different things this weekend. I thought Latrell McCutcheon did extremely well in his matchups one-on-one on the outside. AJ Halsey took some dudes' heads off across the middle. I mean, across the board, the DBs played so well, which really made the jobs a little bit easier, but more fun for the next set of GOATs, and that is the defensive starting front. Keith Cooper, AJ Holmes, Carlos Allen, Brandon Mack, Michael Batten, and Jamal Morris. They lined up against a hopeful college football playoff team with a formidable rushing attack that was going for legitimately 220 plus yards per game this season running the football. I mean, just a strong run team, great running back, great running quarterback, great scat type running back as well. Just all things clicking for Kansas State. Houston held them to 89 yards rushing. 89 yards. Now, this is also the kind of team that, for what it's worth, wants to run the ball a lot. They ran the ball 33 times. I can't stress that this was not from lack of attempts. It's not like Houston jumped out early and they decided they had to throw the ball or something. Kansas State was up for the vast majority of this game. That ESPN chart that has like the predictive measures on how often they win this game, with 13 and a half minutes left in the fourth quarter, had Kansas State as a 94% favorite to win the game, meaning teams with that score at that situation of the game, 19-10, hold on to win the football game 94% of the time. Houston did not have any percentage chance of the win until they finally took the lead with 2:31 to go. And again, all that is to say that Kansas State was always going to run the ball a lot, but with the lead they had, it only made sense that they would want to run the ball more. And they did attempt to run the ball a lot. And the defensive front seven, I guess really front six for Houston, And it kind of depends what you call something. But anyway, the defensive front played the run phenomenally. Aggressive, technically sound, gap integrity was great. These guys played with their hands and leverage. And then when it was time to tackle the ball carrier, they brought violence, violence, violence. It was the best kind of run defense to watch. Hats off to that defense. Continues to be one of the most impressive defenses I've gotten to watch at Houston. I know that there are people older than me that'll go back and find people from before I was born. But like, those the Ed Oliver teams were good on defense, but outside of Ed Oliver, it was like based around him. This defense seems to have a bunch of guys that, while they might not be top 10 picks like Ed Oliver, all feel like they could get paid to play football on any given play. And so I want to talk. I guess here we got to talk about it. The tweet heard around the world on Saturday night. I guess it was late Saturday night. We're going to talk about it some in a second. But first, I'll remind you about our buddies at Game Time, the place to buy tickets. Because right now, if you download the app and use code LOCKEDONCollege, you get $20 off your first purchase. And the lower bowl price, they get into the lower bowl price for Houston and Baylor on November 23rd is all in pricing is $47. $47 to get all in the door, in a seat in lower bowl for Houston wearing the Houston blue uniforms against Baylor. Like, how is that still available? How has no one got that yet? Go to the Game Time app today. I love all in pricing. Clearly, no secrets there. That's all the things all factored in. You can see the price right away. I really, really like that you can see the venue. If it's somewhere you haven't been before, you can see the venue, and for that setup, whether it's a comedy show, theater, concert, sports, whatever, they'll show you what it looks like from the section and row for the type of event at that venue. So you never get surprised on that either. And the low price guarantee means that Game Time will credit you back 110% of the difference if you find tickets in the same section and row for cheaper somewhere else. So go to Game Time, down the Game Time app today, and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Parker answered Locked On Coogs. And I gotta stress, if you can get a lower bowl ticket for less than $50 for a game that Houston might be clinching, going to a bowl in Willie Fritz's first year against Baylor, you need to go do it. That's almost such a good deal. I feel like we got to do some sort of do we need to buy tickets for people to get them in the stadium? Oh, people got to go. That's too good a deal. That's too good. You can get upper deck for less than $20, but you can get in the lower bowl for $47. Crazy. All right. I want to talk a little bit about the tweet heard round the world. I want to talk through what happened in it. I want to talk about why I'm leaving it for the third segment. And then I also want to talk about what could come out of it. So Houston has had a number of recruits at all these games, the one over Utah, the one over Kansas State, being big ones. And that's been important. I'd argue that we'll see that pay dividends in recruiting. What recruit, after sitting through the rain, obviously that part's not great, but getting to see Houston knock off a number 17 team, and then if you know as a recruit that you're a really good football player, okay, I can come make this better. They're already turning this around, and I can be a part of that. And if you're from Houston, you do it for the city with it on your chest. I mean, all those things add up, right? And so, recruit named Micah Rhodes pointed that out on Twitter, and he had a series of pictures from people he got to meet while he was there. He met Tank Dell and a handful of others. And one interesting one, if you look at the picture, is Chidozie Nwankwo, who notably is no longer a Houston Cougar. Dot transferred to Colorado last offseason. A lot of guys transferred in and out. A lot of guys transferred out first, I should say. Didn't want to come be a part of the rebuild. And ultimately, he was on campus during Colorado's bye week, apparently. And I am still hearing mixed things about what his access was to the field, to the players. I mean, he's still friends with a lot of guys. They're former teammates, right? Like, I'm not trying to judge any of that. That's certainly not where I'm trying to go with this. But Dot was at the game. Dot was present at the game. Dot was doing, and frankly, I heard people or saw people tweeting about it before the game even started. Like, I think Chidozie Nwankwo is here. What is Chidozie Nwankwo doing? Right? And while he doesn't have a whole lot of stats, I should point out that it does look like on Pro Football Focus, Chidozie Nwankwo has had a very good year at Colorado. And so I do want to dismiss those kinds of things. Dot, you remember, did get in trouble a little bit a couple different times while he was at Houston, but ultimately that's not really what led to the transfer. The transfer kind of felt like a performance thing, trying to get out somewhere where he wasn't going to have to be a part of a rebuild necessarily. So he gets to meet Micah Rhodes at this recruit visit. Mike is a great football player, and frankly, it'd be great to have him at Houston. They meet, they see this picture, he tags him in it, Micah does, in the tweet, and then Chidozie Nwankwo retweets it, saying, "Come get him at CU Buffs football." And ultimately, that's a very clear moment where Dot is saying that they should recruit this kid. Micah Rhodes is good. They probably got along, hit it off well or whatever, right? I want to talk about this in two different terms. One, the morality of it, and the legality of it in terms of NCAA football stuff. Technically speaking, the rules do prohibit, theoretically, current players recruiting other players on behalf of the institution. But for basically the entirety of social media, whether it's Facebook comments, Instagram, Twitter, TikToks, whatever, for basically social media's entirety, it's just kind of been understood that the tweet, message, comment, repost, etc., is not the same as a, quote, recruitment. There's no offer being made, decisions being forced, in present tense, NIL deals being struck, whatever, right? That's not really how that's ever been applied. And frankly, you see it happen all the time for athletes from all kinds of schools, right? A kid comes on a recruit visit, he and a current player hit it off, and you'll see comments and you'll see whatever, like, "Hey man, great job out there. Hey, would love to have you at Houston," or whatever, right? Like, those kinds of things happen fairly often or frequently. I don't think tattletaling to be by the book in this one instance is necessarily the best look for Cougs fans. I think it's kind of reaching around or not touching on the morality aspect of this is far more upsetting. Houston gave Nwankwo a shot, and he did very well with that and has parlayed it into a program that I think does pay a lot in NIL money or whatever, and he's had some success there and what have you. I will say it'd be nice to beat them in about a year when Houston gets to play them, but that's a future problem. Presently, the issue to me is, what was Chidozie Nwankwo doing anywhere near recruits? What was he doing that close to the field, that interactive with the players? I understand he's on a bye week. He's from the area. He wants to come back and see his buddies and former teammates and what have you. But he's wearing a Colorado Buffaloes sweatshirt. It's kind of covered up a little bit by his chain in this picture, but he's clearly not on the team anymore. And anyone around the program would know he's not on the team anymore. And again, he got in and out of trouble or whatever a couple different times, and that's not really for the discussion at this point. I get why guys would want to have their old teammate back around and chat it up in the locker room and go get food after the game or whatever. That's fine. He doesn't. Visitors that are alumni, you got to be specific about like Tank Dell, who's also one of these four pictures. Tank Dell is an incredible representative of the program. Incredible. You want every athlete to see like what this program did for a guy like Tank, and that should be exactly what you're pitching, right? You want to bring in Case Keenum. You want to bring in Patrick Paul. You want to bring all these other guys that are alumni. Would be great representatives for the program. Bring in a guy that left because he wanted to, not because he graduated or was going pro or whatever. That's a whole different situation. And those guys, well, again, they can still be friends, players on the team or whatever. Those guys should not be near recruits to have let this happen in the first place. That's the bigger issue to me, right? It's not that we need a tattletale about someone breaking a technical rule that most college players do anyway. Um, that's neither here nor there. The problem is the way he was able to get so close to the situation in the first place. And it's unfortunate because, frankly, I didn't want to spend the last 8 minutes talking about this. I didn't want to spend Sunday tweeting about it. Houston won a gigantic football game for the program on Sunday. Frankly, I'm sure that was far more impressive to Micah Rose or any other recruit there than whatever Dot had to say, right? Houston knocked off a top 17 program on Saturday, right? And that's, I think, the big takeaway. We're not going to be done talking about it by any stretch. It is a bye week. There's not an opponent to get ready for this weekend, but there is Houston Cougar basketball this week, and that is fun. As always, we got book club. We're going to kick that to Tuesday because there's a basketball game Monday night, so we're going to preview that in a later episode on Monday as well. All kinds of fun stuff happening here at Locked on Coogs. So hit the bell when you subscribe. That way we know when we go live. Locked on Coogs at Prime. We're going to do, I should stress, there'll be a preview of the game, not super long, but coming out later today, and then a live post game after the Houston Cougar basketball game. That'll also kind of functionally be a Tuesday morning show, but that's for the morning time listeners. You want to go to YouTube? We'll be live there after the basketball game against Jackson State Monday night. Locked on Cougs, primarily the Locked On Podcast Network. It means your team every day. Go Cougs.